What is up? Welcome into Wednesday, February 17th edition of Roughing the Kicker, a daily Kansas City Chiefs podcast on arrowheadreport.com. I am your host, Tucker Franklin, and joining me today for Roughing the Kicker's mock draft 2.0, he's the guy. He's Arrowhead Report's draft analyst, Jordan Foote. Jordan, how you doing today, my man?
Tucker, good dude. I'm really excited. I think that this was whoever came up with this idea must have been some sort of genius or something. But I'm super excited for our second mock draft.
It's you're right. They were a genius, whoever came up with this idea. But I'm super excited to let's just give a quick rundown of what our first mock draft was. 1.0 a week ago on Wednesday, we partnered up with the NFL mock draft database to do this mock draft simulation and to put together our first mock draft. So looking at our round one, we had Jalen Mayfield, the offensive tackle from Michigan. Round two, we had Tylan Wallace, the wide receiver out of Ohio State. Rashad Weaver was our round three pick, edge from Pitt. I'm doing this off the top of the head for schools and positions, so this is kind of impressive. Quinn Miners in round four. He's the center out of Wisconsin-Whitewater, a D3 school who had a really good Senior Bowl. And round five, we had Notre Dame edge Dalen Hayes. And round seven, one of my favorite guys, Joshua Matterbebe, out of Illinois. He's a wide receiver. We had him there at round seven. That was our mock draft 1.0, what we had. Now, as a disclaimer, when we start these mock drafts, we have to say, just because we take guys in earlier rounds and probably you would anticipate guys at positions that you wouldn't anticipate doesn't mean that we think that that's a higher need than what they really are. It really all depends on how the board falls.
Yeah, absolutely, and that is one hell of a disclaimer. It's something that it's easy to forget when people tweet out mock drafts. Like if someone has the Chiefs taking a cornerback or something, like if Farley falls all the way to 31, it would be really hard to pass up on. Like it just depends on how the board falls, and if all the people the Chiefs like were taken beforehand, then it just kind of context is super important and stuff like this, just like the
So
regular draft.
no, you're 100% right. And Jordan has been doing a whole lot of work with his 100 and 100 series. Since we last talked, he went over 7 different guys, but he's got some of these top guys that we really like. And Jordan and I have been really discussing this week leading up to the mock draft on who we really like. Some of these guys like Chaz Surratt, Patrick Jones, Rashad Weaver, one of the guys that we took, and also Tylan Wallace. So what can you tell us about this kind of week of prospects that you've been looking at, Jordan?
Yeah, I've kind of there's no rhyme or reason to the guys I look at. It's kind of who I have that backlog of notes and tape on and stuff like that. So I just broke down some different guys. I have that breakdown of each position, how many guys I'm going to look into. So I think that every single guy that I do something on, it's someone I like, and I think there's at least some sort of fit with the Chiefs. It's not like I go with a random running back who the Chiefs would never take. So it's always fun to do, and I think I went back to back with Weaver and Jones in that reversed order. So I think that it's fun to kind of just compare these different guys. There are some schools like Pitt has a ton of talent on that defense. They have
Yeah.
Ferris Ford out in the secondary. Notre Dame has a ton of talent. So it's just one of those things where school player position, as long as they fit with the Chiefs and they're fair game.
I totally agree. And another school that came to my mind when you were talking about a lot of talent is Penn State. Penn State on the
Mhm.
defensive side of the ball has got a lot of good guys as well. So why don't you say we go ahead and get into this mock draft 2.0? Anything else before we get into it, Jordan?
No, man, let's do it.
All right. This mock draft is brought to you by a mock draft database simulator once again. This guy's website is awesome. I mean, Denny does a great job with it. He's been updating it relentlessly all the way through this draft season, and this is what we're going to be using all the way up. It's practically our Bible, our draft Bible leading up to the NFL draft on April 29th. And we're going to be selecting as the Chiefs, obviously, just as the Chiefs. We're going to be using this year with all 7 rounds. And I do want to mention, too, a lot of people have sent in mock drafts, which we really appreciate that. If you want to run your own simulations, go ahead, run them, screenshot them, tweet them at us with the hashtag RTKMock. We'll definitely make sure we interact with those, talk to you about them, and we'll make sure we talk about them on the podcast as well. We want to do an episode dedicated to your guys' mock drafts because some of you guys have some crazy mock drafts. You guys got to send us your settings on those so we can learn how to hack the system like that. But we're using the pre-draft order, and it's important to note that compensatory picks have not been placed yet. So the Chiefs will have probably a projected 6th and 4th round pick, I believe. So right now the Chiefs are just going to have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 7 round pick. after the compensatory, that's a tough word for me to say, picks get added, they will have an approximate 2 more picks. So it should be a pretty hefty draft for Brett Veach and company. We're going to be using the normal speed, the realistic recommended type of draft in the strict trading rules. And Jordan, before we start, you and I have a kind of a rule when we go through these mock drafts that we don't want to trade.
Mhm.
One, we don't really like to do that because we don't really know if the Chiefs are going to trade, and we just want to run it as realistic as possible. A lot of these trades sometimes you can do on here aren't realistic, that don't really work in real football terms. So that's why we don't usually trade. We just take what the picks are given to us. So let's go ahead and get started on this mock draft 2.0. Jordan, when we look at pick number 31, I know we have a lot of conversations about this, like who should be at 31. What position group kind of at 31 do you prioritize?
I think first and foremost, offensive line, whether it be interior or a tackle, is something the Chiefs really need to think long and hard about. Wide receiver, I know I say it probably on every draft related pod that I come on. Rashad Bateman's my dude. Like if he
Yeah.
slides to 31, I am going to be sprinting to the virtual podium for the Chiefs there. On in terms of defense, I think really it comes down to edge rusher. Like if they have a guy that they really really like who's available, then they might have to pull the trigger on that. But those are pretty much going to be the top three until I can think of something else that or something else comes up. I mean, unexpected things happen, but as of right now, those are probably my top three overall position groups.
Very much so. So let's look back at what just happened before the Chiefs came on the clock at 31. Najee Harris went at 30. I know a lot of people wouldn't be thrilled if they took a running back in the second straight first round pick. But Joseph Asai went at 28 to the Saints. I think that is an interesting pick there. I usually have them when I look at these mock drafts and look in here. I usually see Nick Bolton from Mizzou going there. Jalen Phillips, the guy from edge rusher from Miami at 27. Kadarius Toney, a guy who has been talked about with the Chiefs. So I went at 26. Alex Leatherwood at 25. Samuel Cosme at 24. A rough stretch there for players that we really like, Jordan. Aziz Ojolari went at 23. Rashad Bateman at
Uh
22.
man.
Elijah Vera Tucker at 21. JC Horn at 20. So it was a really tough stretch for guys that we usually like to have our eye on in the first round here. So let's look at the overall board. You have Wyatt Davis, the interior offensive lineman, who on our Monday podcast, I said I wasn't really high on him that much anymore. Travis Etienne from Clemson, he is a running back. Jalen Mayfield at the offensive tackle, who we did take in the first round, is projected at number 33 in the NFL mock draft database big board. Rondale Moore projected at 34. And the Mizzou made guy, Nick Bolton at 35. Jordan, I think we should have this conversation right now already about Nick Bolton. And I know a lot of the
Mhm.
guys at Arrowhead Pride have had this conversation already about Nick Bolton, but he's a very talented player. Why don't you really want to go with a linebacker at 31?
I think it's just the need. And if it was a year ago, I would be perfectly fine with Nick Bolton going to the Chiefs, but there just isn't that pressing need. I think the two starting linebackers, when the Chiefs aren't playing in base, they're going to be Anthony Hitchens and Willie Gay. Teams don't play a whole lot of base, especially the Chiefs in today's NFL. So Nick Bolton would be great. And long term, it would probably be worth it. But right now, considering the Chiefs don't have a pressing need there, it's kind of their tier two, along with maybe safety, corner, stuff like that. That's a tough pill to swallow at 31.
It really is, and I agree with you. I think we've had the conversation too that the Chiefs more than often run three safeties instead of three
Mhm.
linebackers. So drafting another linebacker is kind of like, okay, well, where are you going to use him then? If because
Mhm.
this defense pretty much hinges on what Daniel Sorensen decides to do in free agency, which I guess you love to see that. So let's go ahead and look at the offensive tackle big board. Jalen Mayfield, Tevin Jenkins, Liam Eichenberg, all guys that are very solid at their position. And really, I think, Jordan, we were kind of faced with this last time of do you reach for Tevin Jenkins? Do you take Jalen Mayfield? Maybe do you reach for Liam Eichenberg? We've had the conversation that, yeah, I think Tevin Jenkins is probably worth the reach at this position. But with Mayfield on the board, what are your thoughts there for tackle?
Um, my preference is going to be Mayfield. His scout's going to be dropping soon on Arrowhead Report. Actually, maybe by the time people are listening to this, no, I might be one day off. So that's coming soon. But man, I like Tevin Jenkins for the sake of not doing the same thing. I kind of vote to pick Tevin, but I also can we look at the edge rusher situation, and then B, interior offensive line.
Yep, you read my mind. Let's go to edge next. Jason Owe from Penn
Mm,
State. Man, I like him. They also got Carlos Basham Jr. from Wake Forest. They call him Boogie. I really like Boogie as well. And Patrick Jones the second. Both Basham and Jones had good Senior Bowls.
mhm,
I think they both performed very well. Look at the interior side now. Wyatt Davis at the guard who played at Ohio State, a big boy. Um,
mhm,
I really liked him. Creed Humphrey, he played it a little bit at guard and center at the Senior Bowl and actually performed better at guard. So
mhm.
he could be a viable pick here. He's at 47. And Trey Smith, who I'm not too high on anymore. I think I've kind of, you know, that ship has kind of sailed for me. But Creed Humphrey at this position is kind of enticing. I would say that. But Jordan, what are your thoughts on really both edge and interior offensive line?
Man, I like that board on both. I think that it's kind of one of those situations where I like a guy like Patrick Jones, and I would like to, if we did trades, maybe trade back and try to get him in 10 or 15 picks. So maybe in the next mock we can consider doing trades, but then also, do you want to buy high on that type of potential and go with an edge rusher when you still need an offensive tackle? So man, I'm leaving it up to you on this one. I don't think I'm going to give too much more input. It's all on your shoulders, Tucker.
Oh man. Well, I like that Creed Humphrey's still there. Landon Dickerson is also still there. He's kind of slid down draft boards just
Hmm.
because of his medicals, and rightfully so, I think. Interior offensive line is interesting. I think there are some really good players here that probably won't be around the next time the Chiefs pick, and that's kind of hard to swallow. If you look even further down, Josh Myers could be there, but Josh Myers relies on his upper body a little bit too much, being a big guy. I don't think he moves his lower body enough. I think offensive tackle is probably the way to go.
Yeah.
I really do. And looking at edge, yeah, Jason Elway is fun, and that's a fun pick at 32,
Hmm.
and it's a need too. But I really think that Jalen Mayfield is probably the guy. I know we're gonna do the same thing again. It's gonna be boring, but I think Jalen Mayfield here, and I could talk myself into reaching for Tevin Jenkins. I know we talked ourselves into Jalen Mayfield last time, but I know that you said you weren't going to give any input, but at
I
this moment of time, I mean, do you think we go with Mayfield again?
I think you do. Where is Jones ranked on that draft board overall?
Are you talking
Probably
about
40.
Patrick Jones?
Yeah, Patrick
Patrick Jones
Jones.
is at 57.
Okay,
Um,
then I think we go with Mayfield and then kind of see how the board falls heading into round 2. So I guess we're just going to play it safe and go with that same pick.
Yeah, let's just do it. It's not sexy, but it gets the job done. Jalen Mayfield at number 31. There's a lot of different choices that happen that you could go through right there. A lot of good guys were on the board, and I didn't necessarily hate going with Mayfield again. I know it's not as, like, oh, you should have went with somebody else, but oh well. I think that he's still a very good player.
Yeah, I think so too. And as I was writing down our pick and doing my little virtual draft card here, it's something that I think there's a position of need. There's a quality player that can fill that position of need, and there's also some decent options heading into that end of the second round. So hopefully the board falls the way we want it. I know that sometimes when you do a mock, the board sucks when it gets to your pick, and
Yeah.
sometimes it's the best thing ever. So like, shout out to the people who submit with hashtag RTKMock. We've probably got like upwards of 100 of those in the week since the last episode, which has been fantastic. But man, I don't know if people mod the server or how they do it, but they have gotten some phenomenal lies, and I have never gotten really any good lies on my mock. But it must be that simulator thing where maybe on the back end I'll get a bunch of good ones in a row.
And it's very possible. So let's take a look at what the Chiefs have, what happened before the Chiefs pick, I should say. Jason Alway went at 32. Right after we passed him up, he went. Travis Etienne at 34, Nick Bolton at 35, Rondale Moore at 36, Terrence Marshall at 37, Tevin Jenkins at 38, Liam
Mm,
Eichenberg at 41, Boogie at 42, Wyatt Davis at 43, Creed Humphrey at 47, Trey Smith at 48. So a lot of the guys we were looking at, Trevon Morig at 51, Levi Onwuzurike at 52, Patrick Jones at 56, Landon Dickerson at
Ah,
57, Amon-Ra St. Brown at 60, Dylan Raduns from North Dakota State, which had a good Senior Bowl. I like him.
mhm.
Um, he went at 61. So Jordan, here with hearing all those guys off the board, what position are you kind of looking at now? Do you think we look at edge, wide receiver? What's your thoughts here?
I think it's probably got to be edge or wide receiver, just depending on how that board looks. So let's go ahead and go back to edge and see what we got.
Well, we've got a couple good choices here. Quincy Roche from
Hmm.
Miami. He is on their big board at 71. The Chiefs currently have the 63rd pick. Hamclair Rashid Jr., he's at 89 on the big board from Oregon State. And Rashad Weaver at 95, who Rashad Weaver could be there in round three. That's actually who we took in our first mock draft in round
Hmm.
three. Shaka Tony also is there, and I think is a very good player at the edge as well. So
Hmm.
uh, let's take a look at the wide receiver board. Tylan Wallace, Sage Surratt, Marquez Stevenson from Houston. Sage Surratt is also from Wake Forest. Tutu Atwell from Louisville is also on the board. Wallace is projected at 72, Sage Surratt at 85, Marquez Stevenson at 87. Do you want to look at the interior?
Yeah, did we go Wallace second round in the last one?
Yeah, we certainly did.
Okay,
And
he's off limits.
yeah. And I think that this one could not be bad. Is Josh Myers? He is
Hmm.
at 83 on their big board. It's a reach. Um,
Hmm.
and like I mentioned before, I think his lower body is sometimes a little slower than his upper
Yep.
body, and he relies on his upper body a little bit too much in terms of blitz pickups. But I don't think it's a bad pick to go interior offensive line in the second round. He could be there in the third round, but that's kind of a risk at this point. Deontay Brown will also probably be there close in the third round as well. We can also look at linebacker if you'd like. Chaz Surratt is there. Jabril Cox is there. Baron Browning from Ohio State's there. I don't know if any of those guys tickle your fancy.
Let's peep safety and cornerback.
Okay, so safety we got Andre Cisco from Syracuse, Paris
Hmm.
Ford, who I'm a fan of. He's
Hmm.
slotted at 61, safety from Pitt, and Hamza Nasreddin. I guess I needed to say his name faster, so you guys acted like I knew what I was talking about. From Florida State, also Richie Grant is on the board as well. You and I both like Richie Grant. Look at the cornerbacks here. Paulson Adebayo from Stanford,
Hmm.
Fitu Melifonwu from Syracuse, Greg Newsome the second from Northwestern. So there are some good
Mm.
guys on the board. Um, and I had a conversation with you before the podcast, Jordan, that in this second round, I couldn't convince myself reaching for one of these Jabril Cox or Chaz Surratt linebackers. I think we
Hmm.
had that conversation that I could probably talk myself into something like this. And at 63, that's where the Chiefs took Willie Gay last season.
Yeah, I'm torn on it. I'm torn between a linebacker. Where were Melifonwu and Richie Grant ranked on the database leaderboard?
Yeah, so Melifonwu was at 69, a nice little rating for
Mm,
him there. And Richie Grant was at 77 for the mock draft, which I don't think is a bad reach, Richie Grant. But if personally for me, uh, probably Paris Ford would be the better pick if you're going to pick a safety at this point. But Jordan, do you like Richie Grant better than Paris Ford?
I don't know. I think I like the ceiling of Richie Grant more than Paris Ford and the versatility. But I think if you need someone to step in right now and play a really good role in brand of football, it's going to be Paris Ford. So man, I'm torn between the two. I love both of them pretty much equally, but I'd probably lean Paris just a little bit for the Chiefs.
Yeah, so I think I like Paris in this situation. At edge, when you look at there's some good edges further down the draft.
Hmm.
Peyton Turner's still there. You know, you still got our guys, Adio Gundigi, Jordan Smith, Dalen Hayes, Jonathan Cooper will still be there. There's going to be a
Hmm.
lot of guys still there later on in the draft. Um, and I think that 71 with Quincy Roche is a little bit of a stretch. You go look at linebacker 70 with Chaz. I think you can convince yourself that Chaz could be a good pick there. Jabril Cox at 81 is a little bit more of a reach in my opinion, but I think I agree that probably Paris Ford is probably the smart pick here.
Tucker, I'm writing it down on my card right now, so I guess we're gonna have to send it into the league.
Let's do it. Paris Ford. Now, listen, just because we drafted a safety with our second overall pick does not mean that we think safety is a more pressing need than edge or than wide receiver. That does not mean that. That just means that we liked the board with safety a little bit better than we liked the board with everything else. Because there's going to be some good receivers, there's going to be some good edge
Mhm.
rushers, and possibly some good linebackers down the line. So I think that I'm pretty confident with that pick.
Yeah, absolutely. And Paris is one hell of a player. I think that now in round three, the Chiefs, well, I guess us picking on behalf of the Chiefs, we have to look at probably edge or wide receiver. I don't think that unless someone like Chaz or Jabril Cox really slides all the way down, I think that we're going to have to consider one of those two spots.
I totally agree. I think edge is where you need to go. And what really stinks is Rashad Weaver just went the pick before. Um,
Uh,
so Rashad Weaver went right there. Josh Myers went at 91 to the Vikings. Let me see if we got any other good ones. Tutu Atwell, who I mentioned previously, 87 to the Jets. Richie Grant to the Colts at
mm,
85. Sage Surratt at 83 to the Washington football team. Deontay Brown, who I'd mentioned, maybe he still hangs around there, 82 to the Dolphins. Jabril Cox went to the Raiders. Um,
ew.
right. That's not good. I don't think any. Oh, Chaz went at 70, where he was projected to the
Okay.
Eagles. Quincy Roche went at 68. Afitu Melifonwu went a little bit earlier than he was projected at 66 to the Jets. And Tylan Wallace went right after um,
Uh,
we took Paris Ford. So let's look at the edge board. I've got the edge board up right here. Shaka Tony, he's projected at 100. The Chiefs are peaking at 95. I think that I could probably be okay with taking Shaka Tony right there. I like him. I think he's solid. I don't know his measurements off the top of my head. Do you know, Jordan, if he's if fits that Spags prototype?
I don't either. He's still on one of those things. I have like my spreadsheet set up and he is tape a little bit watched and then need to round out. So he's a guy that I'll have to kind of dive into. He was going to be a latter half breakdown guy.
I'm gonna give a quick little live
Live
lookup
lookup.
about Shaka Tony. So as I want to see what his profile is, what his measurements are, because I think that plays a lot into these edge rushers, right? I mean, he's 6'2" and one and a quarter, one fourth. He's 6'2" and a quarter, 238 pounds.
Nope.
Um, he's a
That
little
ain't going
light.
to do it.
He is a
Yeah.
little light.
Wow. 238.
Yeah, that's like a linebacker.
Holy smokes. That's a
Um,
3-4 outside if I've ever seen one. So
yeah,
Shaka Tony not. And I like him as a player. Like I was watching
so
him
do I.
thinking he has some juice off the edge. Wow. I guess that means
Mhm.
I need to find somebody else to break down. He doesn't look that light. Like I thought he
He
was like a
doesn't.
Joseph Osai because I watched him and was like, maybe he's 245, 248, something like that. Where if you gain 5 to 10 pounds of muscle, you're good. But if he gains 5 to 10 pounds of muscle, he's still going to be super undersized for a Spags guy.
Right. That's a little disheartening, I would say, when it comes to edge. The other edges that we have here is Deo Ode Bingo. I just butchered that name. I know 100% that's not how you pronounce that yes name. From Vanderbilt. Ode Ingbo. Ode Ingbo. Um, ring a bell for you, Jordan? It's not ringing my
is,
bell, I'll tell you that.
is Joe Tryon still on the board
Joe
from
Tryon is
Washington?
not still on the board,
Okay.
sadly.
Mm,
Shaka Tony is the highest rated edge, and then you have Ronnie
okay.
Perkins at 107 from OU.
Okay.
Peyton Turner's still there at 115.
Mm,
But we're kind of getting into scary hours when it comes to looking at the edges
yeah.
that are still there. Addie's still there, Jordan Smith's still there, Dalen Hayes still there, but those are later round guys.
Mhm.
Um, Jonathan Cooper will more than likely be there at the very end. I know that you're not very high on Jonathan Cooper, but there will be edges at the end of the draft. I mean, that's just what it's going to be. And I think that if this comes in the situation for the Chiefs, they're more than likely going to draft a Spags prototypey guy late in the draft rather than a guy who's not a Spags prototype that might have a decent skill set. I think that's probably the way that they will lean.
Yeah, I have a third round grade on Peyton Turner, so I think he has the size. I think he has enough raw explosiveness to where he could potentially be a decent value pick there. You'd have to kind of wait on the cookies to bake in the oven a little bit for him.
Hmm.
So if we go edge here, I think my vote is for Peyton Turner. But let's peep that wide receiver board as a whole and kind of see what we got here.
You read my mind because I was already leaning towards wide receiver, and we've got Marquez Stevenson from Houston, also a Peyton Turner teammate, uh, Tamorian Terry, a guy that has
Mm,
recently caught our attention. Thank you to Mark the Overseer, who I think he ran a mock and he had him in there, and he said something to me like, "Hey, you need to check out this Tamorian Terry guy." I'm sure Jordan already had him on his radar, but I checked him out and I was like, "Oh, like this guy's like
mhm,
legit." He does have a little bit of disciplinary problems, and he was kicked off Florida State's team. But I mean, same thing happened with Tyreek Hill, right? Andy Reid's always good with second chances, so maybe
mhm.
he's a guy that could be a solid option for the Chiefs. He's projected at 98. And Jordan, when I was talking to you about Terry, he was a projected first round pick before he got cut from Florida State. So he's got the first round talent, and he was the Seminoles' leading receiver before he was cut, and I believe he was their leading receiver in 2019 as well. So the dude's got talent. I think that wouldn't be a bad pick at round 3. And then Anthony Schwartz is there from Auburn as well, projected at 109.
Yeah, dude, Terry is a fine football player. He had almost
Mhm.
1,200 yards, 9 touchdowns in 2019. I think it was like 1188 or something. So I mean, he had a fantastic year. He's listed, I think it was like 6'4", 210, I
Yeah,
think. Yeah, so he has the measurables. He has the dynamic playmaking ability. The Chiefs are probably a good fit for him character wise. I think Andy Reid would do a lot for him, and make him a better man and a better football player. So I'm fine with Terry, and I think that it's either him or Peyton Turner at this point.
yeah. And I think that's with Peyton Turner too. I like Peyton Turner.
Hmm.
So both of these guys I do kind of like. When the draft rolls around again, when the Chiefs have another pick, they won't be around.
Yeah.
Um, so it's going to be tough. Would you rather have an edge at this point in the draft? We don't have an edge yet, and I know between you and I, we know that we can get a receiver further down in the draft. But would you? What are your thoughts here? I guess.
Yeah. What was Terry's rank? 110, did you say?
Terry's at 98, man, and we're picking at 95 right
Oh,
now. Yeah. So, I mean, it's gonna really depend on what he does. I don't even know if he's gonna participate in Florida State's pro day. I think he'll probably just have a pro
yeah.
day of his own. But that'll be interesting. I don't think Peyton Turner will be there when the Chiefs pick again at 127. He could be, but that's getting that's like
Where's he at?
playing with fire. He's at 115. And the Chiefs pick again at 127. So
I
it's
think
tough.
with the depth of both of these position groups, I think that you can buy on high upside later in the wide receiver board than
Yeah.
you can on the edge board. So I love Terry, but I think we're gonna have to go with Peyton Turner.
I think I was leaning that way too. I do like Terry. I like the film he's put out, but we're gonna go with Peyton Turner with our third round pick at pick number 95. Peyton Turner going to the Chiefs. Terry just went right after that in the next two
Of
picks.
course he did.
So this board's been kind of brutal to us so far, Jordan. But I think we're dealing with it well.
Yeah, this board is brought to you by our good friends at the NFL mock draft database. And hey, they don't pick any favorites. They don't play favorites. They give you the board and you freaking deal with it. So that's what we're gonna do.
That's true. And what I really like about this board too is that the players fall, I feel like, more realistically than other boards. There are some boards that have players falling in places that I don't think are going to fall. There's
Hmm.
one board that I'm not going to mention, but it has initials, and they keep having Elijah Vera Tucker slide all the way down to the Chiefs at 32, which is just not going to happen. I would love for
Hmm.
it to happen, but it's just not going to happen. And then they give it a D plus grade. So it's all very interesting with the draft board. But I think that this board has been very realistic and how a lot of the mood around these draft prospects have been because they do aggregate all of these different mock drafts and put them all together.
Hmm.
And I think that that's just kind of a perfect way to look at it. So let's look back at who went in this last round here. Dan Moore, offensive tackle, just went right before the Chiefs at 126. Let's see here. Brady Christensen at 118 to the
Ah,
Colts. That would have been a good snag there. Anthony Schwartz at 111. The Auburn wide receiver going to the Patriots. Shaka Tony at 106. Baron Browning at 107 to the Giants. And that's really all. Cameron McGrone, the linebacker from Michigan going at 98, and Tamorian Terry going at 97 to the Jaguars. So at pick number 127, let's take a look at the wide receiver class.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, Dwayne Eskridge, who was at the Senior Bowl, had a pretty decent Senior Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
From Western Michigan, is projected at 122. Marlon Williams from USC or UCF. I just have dyslexia, I guess, and threw an extra letter in there. Had is at 128. Diami Brown. Wow, I'm
Oh
struggling all of a
man.
sudden at 134. That
Oh
would
boy.
be pretty salty. He's not going to be there the next time we roll around. I'll tell you that, because he is good. And let's look at. I'm going to look at. So what do we have? Let's take a look at what we have. We have an offensive tackle in Jalen Mayfield. We have a safety in Paris Ford. We have an edge rusher in Peyton Turner.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts here?
Let's take a look at. Let's go into your offensive line and then edge, but I am full send on Brown. I don't want to say too much because his scout is still coming, but I am full send on that.
He's pretty tasty. I will say that. I like watching him. That North Carolina team's fun to watch. I watched them
Mm-hmm.
with Craig Stout over at Arrowhead Pride. I almost said report. That'd be fun if he wanted to come over to Arrowhead report. But I watched some with him, and it's a fun offense to watch. They got a lot of good guys on the team. But on the interior side, you have Drake Jackson at 159. David Moore from Grambling State had a really good
Mm-hmm.
Senior Bowl, and he played very well. Quinn Miners at 169 from Wisconsin-Whitewater, who we did take in round 4 last time. And since we don't have a wide receiver already, and we had a
Yeah,
wide receiver already in our last draft, I think we got to take a wide receiver here. And I think it's Diami Brown.
I think so too. I think I brought up edge, but I totally forgot that we just took Peyton Turner about 3 minutes ago. So we're going to have to go with Brown here.
I think so too. And when you look at the interior offensive line, I mean, Moore and Miners could be around by 159. Those guys will probably still be there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm willing to bet that one of those two guys will still be there. And I would be okay with taking either of them with the next pick. I don't know about you, but addressing the interior and round, what would that be? 5? It's not a bad idea.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. Let's send it into the league.
All right, Diami Brown, pick 127 to the Kansas City Chiefs. And I really like that pick. This is our first wide receiver off the board, and he's a very talented wide receiver. Jordan, I won't make you divulge too much information about him because I know that there's a scout coming, and I don't want it to be spoiled. But I think that we once again have done well with this board.
He's a big play receiver. People don't talk enough about his ability after the catch, and I think that that's something in an Andy Reid offense that definitely helps. And he has the size, I think, to get it done. So I'm really excited about him coming to the Chiefs. I'd be just fine with that.
So looking at 159, we did get let me see here, David Moore off the board, the interior offensive lineman, but Quinn Miners is still there at 159 at the interior side. Is there any position you want to look at? Maybe linebacker. I know Charles Snowden is still there. You have a recent, gonna have a report coming up about him. We'll look at cornerback here, DJ Daniel from Georgia, Elijah Griffin from USC. I like Miners here. I don't know who else would you want to look at position wise.
Is Shakur Brown still on the leaderboard at corner? I'm not sure if he was at 96 or not. I think he might have been in 90s, guys. So I'm sure he's gone.
Yeah, he is gone off of the corners. They don't. I don't think they have him
Okay.
listed as a safety either. So yeah, he is a corner and he is gone. Edge. I still think that if we did want to add Ogundobi or Jordan Smith or Dalen Hayes, we could wait because all three of those
Yeah.
guys are still there at 184, 185, and 186. I think interior, probably the smart way to go
Mhm.
is either Quinn Miners or Robert Hainsey, who's at 182. But I think Miners is probably the best bet here.
Yeah. So let's limit our duplicate picks at 2. And I guess
I'm okay
if a
with
guy
that.
like Josh Amat or Bebe is available later, we'll just have to shed a tear and pass on him. But I think Quinn Miners in round 5, you can't do much better than that.
I think, yeah, okay. I will say this, but I think that this is kind of a little bit of an exception because we picked him around later, right?
Oh,
And
that's
it's not a
true.
straight duplicate.
That's how the
So
board fell.
that's just how the board fell. So that's how the cookie crumbles. And I think now we'll look at this. The Chiefs only have one more pick here at 223. This is best available, right? When it comes down to this, you just got to take the best available guy.
Yeah, I think so too. If one of our guys is still there, that maybe isn't a direct position of need, but at this point, you're not addressing to fill needs in round 7. You're just a team
Right.
that you're kind of just doing it however you can. So I think that you go with the best guy available, and if there's a name that jumps out, then by all means, let's go for it.
I know we talked about Josh Bebe, and I might be the highest guy on Josh Bebe for him being a 7th round prospect there is out there. His box jump videos of him jumping 74 inches are
Hmm.
absolutely insane. I know a lot of people will be like, oh, well, he gets a running start. Well, I don't care. It's still 74 inches. It's insane. So the Chiefs are now on the clock at 223. Puka Williams, he's there.
Oh my gosh.
for the Kansas people out there. Frank Darby, a name that we usually see
Mm,
go a little earlier. He's still there on the board. But let me talk about who's gone. I guess I should add. Kay Johnson from South Dakota. He went just a pick
mhm.
before. I like him. He's good. Let's see. Dalen Hayes went to the Bucks at 216. Jordan Smith went to 215 to the Jets. Let's see here. I think I saw Addy go to Larry Borum, the interior offensive lineman from Mizzou, went at 202. Josh Bebe went at 194 to the Niners. Man, he's rising. I don't think the Chiefs can get him anymore because he's rising. His draft stock is rising. Yep, there it is. Addy Ogundiji is at 185 to the Rams. So we're looking here. Chris Tonga at 183 to the Dolphins as well. Okay, so let's look at the board here for 223. Puka Williams. This is just the top board right now, the top prospects.
Mhm.
Austin Watkins Jr. from UAB, William Bradley King, the edge from Baylor, Jonathan Cooper, the edge from Ohio State, Frank Darby, 200, wide receiver from Arizona State. 199 is Jonathan Cooper, and 198 is William Bradley King. So, Jordan, what are your thoughts here?
I'm 110% in on Frank Darby. I can't believe that he slipped all the way to the 7th round. I think that he's a guy who gets talked about as a possible 5th round pick. And I've seen Josh Bebe. I gave both those guys round 5 grades, so I might be higher on them than most. But I think that Bebe has the ball skills and the size, and he's an athletic freak, as you said, with the box jump. And then Frank Darby, he had a disappointing 2020, but he has all the makings of a deep threat in the NFL. So I like him a lot.
Yeah, I'm just looking around the other boards to see if any names catch my eye. I'm not really seeing a whole lot that
Mhm.
really stand out to me. Robert Jones is a guy that sticks out to me
Mm.
here at 255. He wouldn't be a bad another interior offensive line guy because the Chiefs really do need to stock up on offensive line depth, and he wouldn't be a bad pick. I wouldn't be upset if that happened right here in the 7th round. Looking at offensive tackle, not a whole lot here. Adrian Ely from Oklahoma, Cole Van Lannon from Wisconsin. Look at cornerback, nothing stands out there. Safety, nothing really stands out there for me
Greg
either.
Island,
Linebacker, Greg Island at
did
where?
he already go?
At
Big
tackle.
Greg, no, into your offensive line.
Big Greg is not there anymore. So yeah, he must have went and I must have missed it. Because he's
Ah,
Mississippi State, correct?
yeah,
Yeah, that's too bad, man.
because he has
Big.
that mean streak too. That I just like him. I want as soon as
Mhm.
Craig put us on Greg Island, like I just I've been following him on social media. Just I love. He's an enigma.
He really is. And there's some good edges too. Like I mentioned, William Bradley King, Jonathan Cooper, K-State guy White Hubert is also there on the
Mhm.
board. I really think Frank Darby's probably the way to go
Yep,
here. So let's go ahead and mail that one in. Frank Darby at two. Well, what pick was that? I forgot already
I
off the
think
top of my head.
223.
Yeah, 223 to the Kansas City Chiefs. So let's go ahead and look back over our mock draft here. We got Jalen Mayfield going at 31, Paris Ford going round two, pick number 63 to the Kansas City Chiefs. Peyton Turner, the edge from Houston, going to the Chiefs at 95 in round three. Diami Brown, I like that pick on round four at 127. That's a solid. I feel like that's a steal right there. And Quinn Miners, we did have him in last week's draft, but
Mm-hmm.
different round. Round five at 159. The D3 center from Wisconsin-Whitewater, who had a really good Senior Bowl, and Frank Darby rounding out our draft at 223. Jordan, do you like this draft better than our previous one?
I don't think I like it better, but I do like this one. I think that you get um, help on the offensive line, on the exterior and interior. You get help at the second level of the defense and the front line, or I guess that third level of the defense with Paris Ford. And you get a pair of wide receivers that are big play threats. So I think that it was definitely a good draft, and really the board didn't fall as well as the last one did. So I think considering what we had, we did pretty well.
Yeah, I think we addressed the main needs too.
Mm-hmm.
With the offensive tackle in the first round, I think offensive tackle is probably going to be the one big one that the Chiefs are going to have to address. The edge coming in the third round with Peyton Turner, I don't think is a bad reach at all because his frame is going to be good and they can build off of that. Paris Ford in the second round, another safety who can be very good on this defense. Diami Brown, a very solid wide receiver, and same with Frank Darby. I think Frank Darby is a
Mm-hmm.
very strong wide receiver as well. Quinn Miner is a guy who's probably going to be used more for depth, I would assume, early on,
Yeah.
just because he probably has to prove himself coming from a D3 school. But we did see, undrafted free agent Tershawn Horton come on and perform right away, which is a possibility. But getting that interior offensive line depth and that line depth elsewhere will be important for the Chiefs. But Jordan, I think this draft is okay. I think I'm with you on it. Like, I might not be as satisfied with it as the first time around because our first one was pretty strong. But this one, I don't think we can complain about.
Yeah, no, I dig it. I think that it wasn't a bad mock. Like if we put it in the grade machine, the mythical grade machine, we'd probably get a B minus for it. I think that as long as we're happy with it, that's really all that matters, and hopefully the MVLs like it too.
Yep. And if you guys want to create your own mock draft, head on over to the NFL mock draft database. Head on over to their mock draft simulator. You can set the options, set the teams, set the rounds, everything that you want for what you want to run for your selection. But make sure to screenshot it, share it with us on Twitter, tag at footnoted at Tucker D. Franklin. You know what? Throw Connor in there too, at Connor underscore DKC. Throw him in there. Blow up his notifications, I guess, um, for the mock drafts, and make sure you hashtag it RTK mock so we can see all of these mock drafts in one place. Jordan and I are going to do an episode where we talk about your guys' mock drafts. That will happen. So, but make sure you follow us on Twitter and you're checking in with us, and make sure you go check out the NFL mock draft database because this website's awesome. I can't tell you how many times I've looked at their consensus big board to like look at guys and be like, okay, kind of this is where they're laying, this is where they're falling. I feel a little bit more comfortable with them, and I'll usually check it when people ask me like, oh, what do you think about this guy? And I'll think off my top of my head, oh, they're probably an early second. And I'll make sure I'll go check and see where they have them in other mock drafts. I'm like, okay, I feel comfortable with my evaluation there.
Yeah, absolutely. There's something for everybody on the database and the
There is.
simulator. So I think that as long as you go and check it out, you won't be disappointed.
Jordan, I appreciate you joining me to run through this mock draft with us. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you did, leave us 5 stars and a thumbs up and a nice big old fat pretty review if you love the episode. So we appreciate you guys listening. Tomorrow I'll be with Connor Christofferson. So until then, talk to you tomorrow.